Hey everyone, this is Sean Larkin, one of the members of the Webpack core team. Thanks for watching Webpack Academy and learning about some of the new migration process that you can expect to look forward to when upgrading from Webpack 3 to 4. So today we're going to talk about the CommonsChunkPlugin, or technically the lack thereof. And that's right, in Webpack 4 we've actually removed the CommonsChunkPlugin that you are used to seeing in a variety of different configuration environments. So what we've done is we've actually replaced it with not only a set of defaults that just works and applies across any bundling environment, but also a new optimization feature that we'll touch on next. But I want to talk about some of the default scenarios and how you would come across it. So first things first is just talk about the project structure here. So if we look, we have just a source folder and index.js. This is the default for Webpack if you're not using a config. And then inside we have this themes folder, which has essentially a whole bunch of files that are almost have identical functionality. But what's important is that they all have this shared dependency, which is Preact in this case. So ideally, when you think about performance architecture, you would want to be able to have any of these load, but extract this dependency into its own bundle. That way you have better caching when any of these files are loaded. Now if we look at index.js, these would actually get lazy loaded, and because it's a context module and it's a dynamic import statement. And we could cover this at another time, but what's important to understand is that Webpack for each one of these files is going to make a lazy chunk. Now in Webpack 3 we would have had to create a new CommonsChunkPlugin and set it to async and then also give it a name. Now in Webpack 4, it's going to be handled out of the box for you. So let's just see if we were to run yarn Webpack, and I'm actually going to set the mode to none in this case, and that way we can actually see how that common dependency is actually extracted out. So if we look here, we have this one, and if we look, this is just one of the lazy chunks, but you can see it literally says, we would typically see that import statement, but there's also, it's referencing another bundle entirely. So if we were to look through this and see if we can find it. It's in here somewhere. There we go. So this is actually the Preact dependency. And you can tell essentially it has the H component. These are all the exports that you would expect. But the important thing is that instead of having to add a new CommonsChunkPlugin for this, by default in any mode, we're going to handle this for you. So this is a really great default that you can expect out of the box to work with Webpack. So the second scenario that I want to paint for you is actually when you're lazy loading some additional modules. Now in this case we have a lazy module.js, and it's importing a somewhat larger dependency. In this case it's lodash.es, and we're pulling in one of the properties, and then we're going to export it. And in the same way, we're also using Lodash in some extent, but then we're taking and using a different export and then exporting the value. Now what's important to note is that really the only difference that's happening here is that these two share a common dependency, and none of the themes that we were looking at before share that Lodash dependency. So what Webpack is actually going to do, and I'll show you just by running, is that it's going to create a additional shared async chunk. And you might say, well, Sean, why would you be doing that? So in this case, since none of the other modules are leveraging Lodash in it, it wouldn't make sense to bundle that up into a single shared async chunk. Reason being is that those themes don't require that extra dependency, and so it removes a lot of, or prevents a lot of runtime overhead that may occur from trying to load it in its, in a shared bundle together. So in this case we see that Lodash is in this asynchronous bundle, but if we go back here we have Preact still in its own shared commons chunk. So now Webpack is able to identify what scenarios for any asynchronous loading that should happen out of the box. Now when it comes to multi-page applications or architectures that require you to have multiple entry points that you're bundling with Webpack, you will have to explicitly define some configuration options, and we can cover that in the next episode. But overall, the thing to take away here is that Whenever you are using dynamic imports or lazy loading your code, you should never have to worry about caching asynchronous dependencies and creating commons chunks for them.